thrives on knowledge and intuition. One man has consistently defied odds, challenging the status quo, pushing boundaries and guiding us into the depths of human wisdom. This man, known to us only as Ken, has been the guiding light in a labyrinth of confusion, the harbinger of discernment in an era of information overload. For years, he has ignited minds and sparked countless debates with provocative questions and thought-provoking answers on the show that redefined the way we perceive our reality, Ken's Think Tank. Season after season, Ken and his guests have unearthed truths, unraveled mysteries, and inspired us to think, question, and wonder. But all good things must come to an end. Now, the shadows of the final curtain begin to loom as we brace ourselves for the grand conclusion. The stakes have never been higher, the questions never more profound, the answers never more essential. This is the final frontier of enlightenment, the ultimate pursuit of knowledge. Get ready to embark on the last journey into the abyss of the human mind, where every episode will strike a chord, every revelation will resonate deeper than ever before. Prepare for the explosive culmination of a saga that has held us in its grasp, leaving us thirsty for more. It's not just a season, it's the end of an era. It's the final call to those who dare to challenge conventions, break out of the mold, and unravel the tapestry of existence. This is the final season of Ken's Think Tank. Dive in as the final chapter unfolds and the legacy of Ken continues to inspire, question, and ignite thought. One last time, let's tank up our minds and think. Okay, let's lighten it up a bit. That was a bit dramatic. Yes, this is the last season of Ken's Think Tank. This project began as an idea, an old GoPro camera and a headphone boom mic taped to the roof of my truck. It quickly evolved into a full production with a lot of really cool guests. But the world keeps spinning and changing, and we must change with it. Ken Collins Marketing, the parent company to Ken's Think Tank, has outgrown the show. While it has been one of the most fun things I've ever done, after 7 years, it's time to end on a high note. This is one of the 10 final episodes. I've reached back to my collection and pulled out 10 episodes to feature in no particular order. Have you guessed who is featured in this, our final episode? Comment below and let me know if you've guessed correctly. For the last episode of Ken's Think Tank, the one that wraps up the show for good, the final curtain call is here. I've chosen to end where I started. Almost 8 years ago, I had an idea for a show, and I needed a guest. The first person that came to mind was Scott Micklin. I gave him a call and basically said, "Hey, I'm doing a thing. I don't really know what I'm doing. You want to be my guest?" He immediately said, "Sure, sounds like fun." He called me back later and asked, "Is Jerry Seinfeld going to sue you?" That's when I realized I just created a weird version of comedians in cars getting coffee. I'm no comedian, and neither were my guests. But we've had a ton of laughs in the truck, and even a few tears. It's been a wild ride, and one that I'll remember forever. Thank you, Scott Micklin, for helping me get the tires rolling. And thank you to all the really great people who've jumped in the truck for a casual drive with a crazy driver. And thank all of you, my viewers, for making all of this possible. I love each and every one of you. There may be another project in the future, I can't say for sure, but I will never forget this journey. Thanks for taking the ride with me. Enjoy.
As I drive to pick up Scott, I'm a little nervous. Why am I nervous? I've been interviewed tons of times, several times by Scott himself. but I've never interviewed anyone. Well, outside of job applicants. And Scott isn't applying for a job. This is my first think tank show with my first guest, and this is my first interview. And this is not just any Scott I'm on the way to pick up. This is Scott Micklin. Scott, who was our local TV news anchor and news director for years. Scott, who's been the general manager of the KSG radio station at San Juan College for the past 10 years. Scott, who hosts a 1-hour talk show with local community leaders every weekday morning on his radio station. Yeah, Scott. He's a bit of an expert on how to interview people. I talk too fast when I'm not making a conscious effort to slow it down. I develop an accent that mimics anyone I'm around for more than an hour. I run my words together. I yell at people in traffic. I get lost in the 10 different channels in my head while I'm trying to focus on the one that you see. And I'm interviewing him? Okay, get it together, Ken. Our topic today is fake news. This is going to be fun. Want to see how it goes? Come along for the ride in Ken's Think Tank. Scott really knows his way around a studio, so I took some time to show him around mine. I asked him if he'd ever been in a studio that was also a truck. I got my studio at 505 Motorsports. You can go there and get a studio of your very own. You'll also need some camera equipment and sound equipment and, you know what, second thought, don't go to 505 Motorsports to get a studio. Go there and get a vehicle. They're really great at that. We're ready?
We're ready.
Let's get some coffee.
All right.
And my driving is a little crazy, so I'll
admit that.
I'll do my absolute best not to maim or otherwise harm the national treasure named Scott Micklin.
Thank you very much. I'm glad there's no camera pointed at the floorboards because I think there's no brake pedal on this side of the truck. I just want the public to know
brake.
that.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I do have my little chicken handles I can hang on. Things go really south.
Right. I figured it would make for a fun show, just people panicking about my driving.
Yes, exactly.
So I just picked you up from United Way. You are a board member. You used to be the president there, right?
I am still the president.
Oh, you're still the president.
For about one more meeting, and then my term will end.
You've been here forever. You came here in like 1989, right?
I know. Yeah, the last century.
You know, that's actually when I left.
I won't take that personal, Ken, but okay.
And you came here from Buffalo?
Actually, I went to college in Buffalo.
Oh, okay.
And I was working in Elmira, New York, which is about...
Where is that?
3 hours away, near the border with Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
It's called the Southern Tier of New York State. Its claim to fame is where Mark Twain met his wife, and he wrote some of his Tom Sawyer stories during the summers in Elmira, New York, not on the Mississippi River.
Hi.
We are at an undisclosed coffee location. I will take a small mocha, please, hot.
Okay.
And I'm gonna do a large one.
A large mocha?
Yeah, with no whipped cream. It just gets in the way of what I'm trying to do.
So now Ken's gonna talk, interview, drive, and drink coffee.
Yeah.
Do you want whipped cream on the small one?
Sure.
All right.
I'm not driving. No, I have a. Uh-oh.
You know what? I knew you'd be wearing a tie.
Oh, thank you.
So I brought a tie.
I feel much good. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You can match it.
Let's see.
That's my Beatles tie.
Very nice. See? That's good.
It goes with my outfit.
Exactly.
What makes Scott Micklin take off his tie, tie it around your head, and just go crazy?
Right. That has never happened.
It's never happened.
But, thanks for asking. I did take a pie to the face for Child Haven last year, so that was not necessarily fun for me, but I'm sure it was very much fun for the crowd. We're all wearing a, what was it, like a leopard print shower cap. Yeah, there's pictures of it.
Is there a picture?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And we're passing PMS, KOB, right?
Yes,
so you're on the board with Presbyterian Medical Services.
I do sit on that board, yes.
You were long time with KOB.
17 years.
News anchor and news director?
News director,
yeah. So fake news.
So for fake news,
where do you think that came from? I mean, how do you think that kind of got its start? Outside of like regular traditional media, which may not always be the dead truth, but where, like real fake news. Where do you think?
Well, I think as we see, with social media now, there's so many more sources for news.
Right.
And those came about from cable TV, and then of course you've got blogs, and you've got websites, and you've got now all these news sources for news that have cropped up in the last decade or a little bit more. And so I think, in that competitive drive to get people to notice you, to notice your website, to notice your news, to notice whatever it is you're doing, stories would get more and more outlandish or sensational or things like that, and they kind of delve into that fake news category. Then you have the other stories that maybe aren't fake news, but they are maybe political leaning, and so nowadays, if you're a conservative, you tend to get your news from more conservative leaning media outlets. If you are more liberal, you would get your news and information from more liberal leaning outlets, and so anything published from the other side you would consider fake news because it's the other point of view, and they're crazy over there.
They're absolutely crazy. Yeah.
And so I think we get some of that, even though the stories are probably accurate to some certain degree, but they're not painting your candidate, your party, your issue in the positive light that you would like it reported in. And so I think that's where. So it's a combination of, I think, all those things. And I don't know if you agree or not, but that's been my observation. Just kind of looking at it.
I did kind of notice, maybe from the traditional news avenue, you might know, you would have better insight on this. It seemed like things have changed and the world has sped up, and so deadlines and all that kind of a thing cause you to spend less and less and less time as a reporter or a journalist or something like that, less time on a story because of the deadlines that you have to meet and everything. So
that's true.
It doesn't seem like there's enough. You kind of glean over the top facts, the superficial facts, and then like the real meat of the story, where probably the real truth lies, isn't dug into as much anymore. Do you find that true?
I think that's true. And in fact, I teach a class at the college called Survey of Mass Media, basically an intro to mass media course, and show them. We watch a documentary every semester on. Let's see, it's about Edward R. Murrow, who was one of the very first television journalists, moved over from radio, covered World War II in London, and radio, and they have a lot of these old network correspondents who are talking about even the changes when this was made, probably in the 90s. And one of the famous quotes that I remember from that documentary is, the news comes really fast, and there's not a lot of time to interpret the news. We're too busy just reporting it, and whereas in the past, there may have been a bit more analysis and maybe a bit more investigative reporting. And so you get the news with a bit more context, whereas now it's just kind of, especially I think in television, where the picture really draws and moves the story, and you don't always know what happens outside of that video clip.
Exactly.
What happened before the guy was dragged off the plane? We see the guy being dragged off the plane, and that's horrible. But what we don't see is maybe what led up to that. So,
exactly.
And that's just one example, maybe not a good one. I don't know how many times I've seen Don Knotts die. The poor guy dies every year, and I feel terrible that and then every year people go, "Oh, I loved him. He was great." I'm like, he's been dead for 10 years. Sorry, Don. But I think all of us, as modern consumers of news, have a responsibility to, question if the news is accurate, question where the source is that we're getting our news.
Even from traditional media, like the quote-unquote trusted news sources, you should question, is what they're reporting just taken out of context? Or, what's the real story, the full story? Or is it just a portion of the story that fits the narrative of the audience that pushes what they report? That's true. And I think, again, if you are of a certain political leaning, stepping outside the box to get your news, or look at a news source that's maybe from the other point of view once in a while. And watch your blood pressure, but just to see what the other side's talking about, and the same story with a different perspective might give you a little bit more of a 360-degree view of the issue. And the timeline in my head, this is how it went, is I started seeing, which I'm a huge fan, the Onion articles show up on Facebook.
Yes.
And they were hilarious.
Right.
And so I was actually reading those because, just highly entertaining. And I didn't realize they've actually been around for a long time. They were in print and everything else. So I think Chicago-based or something like that.
It's a satire news site.
It is. Yes. Yeah, so the Onion is satire news. And I understood that
good.
just reading the stories that they were satire.
Very good.
The funny thing, though, was watching the people that didn't understand they were satire.
Right.
And I really wasn't aware of any other of the kind of fake news stuff. But there were so many people that they didn't understand that those were... They're not true.
Right.
They're satire.
They took it verbatim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people
because
thought
of your credibility,
maybe...
Ken Collins. That's what happens. If Ken posted it, must be true.
Some people thought maybe there's something to it, but they were sort of questioning, like, is this for real?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, from that, it seems like sprung up all of these crazy news stories.
But I wanted to bring up that I've seen other satire websites or Facebook pages. Some are Navajo news from the reservation that do satire Navajo stories, and it really drives people crazy because they think it's true and they don't see the little disclaimer that's on there that says that does say that it's satire. At least they admit it. But they present some of these stories like they're true, and even other third party sites that look like a newspaper or look like something legitimate, and unless you look and maybe click on the about or about us or whatever,
do some digging.
You can't tell that it's not true, and maybe these crazy things are based in fact, but they're not.
Right.
And then people share them, and it makes my head explode sometimes.
It does. So what do you think a solution for that is? I mean, there are some organizations now, including Facebook, that are taking measures to try and curb that.
And see, that worries me a little bit, because then, we could talk about censorship and free speech. And so, if you start blocking sites because you don't agree with them politically or what have you, or you think they might be fake. I mean, unless it's demonstrably fake, I think it's difficult to really make that call to say, we don't want this on our site or not, and in front of our 3 billion users.
I think part of what Facebook was doing, which isn't necessarily censorship, but they were kind of cleaning up their user base.
Right.
So I think they got rid of like 30,000 what they're calling fake accounts.
Right. Now that would be good, because that goes against their rules, and you're not supposed to have a fake account.
And those accounts were then propagating these fake news things. So and that's pretty much solely what they were doing.
Yeah.
So they kind of got rid of the account, and if you as a person want to go out to one of those fake news sites and share a story, then that's your right. You can do that.
Right.
So I kind of agree with that measure, but you are right. I mean, it does kind of borderline. It starts to go into that territory of freedom of speech and censorship and all that.
Exactly. But, on the other hand, it would be nice to know that everything you read on Facebook is legit and, and true.
Do you ever think that will ever happen?
No, but it would be nice. Well, or could there be something maybe like a little banner that says, this story has been flagged as potentially not accurate,
sure,
read with caution, or at least something that would give the user
label.
Something to say, oh, well, this might not be true.
Right.
At least
Right. So kind of like
that.
The skull and crossbows for poison or whatever. Maybe
or
they're on tobacco. Maybe a little fake news symbol,
a little advisory or something, like on the old CD labels or something, right? I don't know. I don't know. If you use that idea, Facebook, you owe me.
Yeah. Scott has copyrighted it right here and now.
That's right.
It's going out in the public domain as copywritten.
There you are. I want the audience to know that Ken is kidnapping me and we're driving to Mexico. Because I don't think we've turned north yet.
We're going to Canada. I was going to go to Mexico and change my mind, so now we're going to Canada. It's cooler, and
That's
the weather's
true.
getting
It's getting
warm, and
warm,
I don't
so
really
Canada's
deal.
the place to go.
Yeah, I don't deal with the heat that well.
gotcha.
So
Okay.
if it were earlier in the year, we'd probably go to
Mexico.
Mexico.
I'm with you. Yes, sir. Spring break.
Yeah.
No, you missed our chance. Ken, you got to watch a newscast or something. Pick up a paper. Come on. I'm trying to help you out, buddy.
Radio, of course, while I'm in the truck.
Thank you. Okay. I was going to have to get out right now.
Oh,
I think I may be having a spell, Ken, because my entire life is flashing before my eyes. 'Cause
I
here we
know.
Are. Now it's San Juan College.
We're taking
Am
a
I
tour.
dying? Am I dying? Is my entire life flashing before my eyes? You buy the TV station. Now we're here at San Juan College.
We're in San Juan College, where you've been an instructor since the year after you moved here.
1990. That's true. Yeah.
Lord have
crazy. How about
mercy.
that?
Been an instructor here, and now you run the radio station.
Now
You've
I'm
got your
the
own talk show.
General
and-
manager of KSJE, and that's
Right?
10 years this year. Isn't that crazy?
Wow,
How about that?
that's amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm a fan of KSG. You do a good job over there.
we certainly try. And if you haven't listened to us, we encourage you to tune in, and you can do it even digitally. I know that's
I know.
Ken's world. You can stream us. KSJE.com.
Well, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Well, thank you, Ken. I'm glad we're in one piece.
I know, and I miss actually coming by and getting on the radio with
Right.
you and all that.
Well,
so
you need to do that.
I'm gonna have to
we'll
do
have to
that
talk
again.
marketing or something.
Exactly.
Or what have you.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
Very cool.
Thank you very much, sir. Good
Great
luck
to
with
have
this. It's a lot of fun.
All right.
No makeup, everybody. Just letting you know this is it.
So, you all know we're recording this ahead of time.
Right.
So
It's not live.
So anyway,
Took out all the fender benders.
Ken's Think Tank is made possible with help from these fine sponsors. Basin Home Health and Hospice, keeping you healthy, happy, and home since 1992. Durango Joe's, with a smile, a warm greeting, and a great cup of coffee. Farmington RV Sales and Service, serving the Four Corners since 1959.